Have you ever wondered why you feel so out of place? Like an alien wearing human skin standing in a crowded room that feels strangely hollow? Why small talk tastes like cardboard in your mouth? Why parties exhaust you instead of feeding you? Why laughter sometimes sounds like echoes in an empty hallway? Pause for a moment. Breathe. It's not because you're broken. It's because you're awake. Most people wander through life half asleep. They smile on cue, laugh when the crowd laughs, nod when it's expected. Their days are painted by routines and cheap thrills. They rarely stop to question if the life they're living even belongs to them. Jung called this the collective persona, the masks we wear to survive in the tribe, masks that keep us accepted, praised, safe, but also masks that smother who we truly are. So when you sit there, quietly observing instead of blending in, they call you antisocial. When you question what others accept without blinking, they say you're difficult. When you crave silence over noise, solitude over shallow company, they label you strange. But what if your discomfort with the surface isn't a flaw? What if it's your gift? Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. That privilege comes at a cost, usually paid in loneliness, misunderstanding, and a gnawing sense of being out of sync with the rest of humanity. Because you see what they don't. While others lose themselves in the hum of distraction, you notice the slight tremor in someone's voice, the sadness tucked behind their grin, the lie hidden in the way their eyes dart away. You catch patterns, undercurrents, energies that swirl beneath words. You feel the weight of things unsaid. That depth is both a curse and a kind of superpower. Most people will never meet themselves. They're too busy being who they think they should be, who the world told them to become. Their laughter is often camouflage. Their busyness is an escape from the terror of sitting alone with their own minds. Silence is a mirror, and many are afraid to look into it. But you're different. You don't run from your mind. You listen to it. And that's why they misunderstand you. Ask yourself, is it truly better to be surrounded by noise, by endless chatter that never pierces the skin of anything real? Or to sit quietly with your thoughts, even if it means carrying the sharp loneliness of being the only one who notices the emperor is naked? You're not antisocial. You're selectively social. You're drawn to conversations that matter, souls that have peeled back their own illusions. That's rare. Most people never go there. They're too busy polishing their masks. So yes, you stand out. But that's not something to apologize for. In fact, it might be the clearest evidence that you're alive in ways many people aren't. Jung would say, don't shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for the full expanse of your soul. The discomfort you feel isn't rejection. It's reality nudging you, reminding you that you were never meant to be just another echo in the crowd. So next time someone tells you you're too quiet, too intense, too distant, smile gently. They don't realize that beneath your calm exterior is a mind that's wide awake, seeing truths that would terrify them if they ever dared to look. The crowd laughs, but never thinks. Loneliness is the cost of clarity. Look around you. Notice how easily people slip into laughter, how quickly they agree, echoing each other's words like hollow instruments. Watch how they flock to trends, chase likes, repeat the same opinions, the same jokes, the same outrage. It's almost hypnotic, isn't it? Like a dance choreographed by invisible strings. Carl Jung warned that most people never truly individuate. They never break away from the psychological gravity of the crowd. Instead, they live out scripts written by their parents, their culture, their peers. They nod along, obey unwritten rules, and call it being normal. But here's the price of thinking for yourself. You will often stand alone. When you refuse to laugh just because everyone else is laughing, when you pause and question instead of automatically agreeing, you disrupt the tribal harmony. And for that, the world labels you difficult, antisocial, arrogant, anything to avoid confronting the unsettling truth that maybe you're simply more awake. Ask yourself, have you ever felt a subtle pain in your chest as you realized you were the only one not swept up in the collective excitement? Ever sat silently at a table while everyone else roared with laughter, feeling like you were watching a play from backstage, seeing the strings, the nerves, the masks, the quiet desperation hidden beneath the show? That ache you feel, that is the cost of clarity. Because once your eyes open, they don't close again. Once you begin to see patterns, the way people talk to avoid talking, laugh to avoid feeling, work to avoid being, you can't unsee it. And it gets lonely. Most people crave belonging more than truth. They would rather laugh with the herd than face the unsettling solitude of independent thought. It's safer to merge with the crowd's energy, to drown out the soft whispers of your own doubts. But what if Jung was right? What if the real danger isn't in being alone, it's in losing yourself to avoid being alone? You feel disconnected because you no longer fit the mold, because you see the contradictions others ignore. You're aware of the absurd rituals, the empty small talk, the desperate need to be liked, the collective outrage over trivial things, while deep pain and real questions rot beneath the surface. And so you carry a double burden, the burden of truth and the burden of being misunderstood. Jung called this the path of individuation, the slow, often painful process of separating from the collective psyche to discover who you actually are beneath all the conditioning. It is a solitary journey. Most people will never take it. They'd rather stay cozy in the warm embrace of shared illusions. But here's something to hold on to. The loneliness you feel is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that something is finally right. It means you are no longer anesthetized by the crowd. You are beginning to live by your own inner compass, not theirs. Let's be brutally honest. The crowd rarely thinks. It reacts. It imitates. It moves like a single organism driven by fear of exclusion. Clarity makes you step out of that organism. It turns you into an outsider. And that's why it hurts. So when you're sitting quietly at a party watching instead of joining the chorus, know this. You're not deficient. You're simply awake. You're studying the dance, seeing the invisible scripts play out, the micro-expressions that betray hidden fears and insecurities. Most people need the crowd to tell them who they are. You, on the other hand, are starting to discover yourself in the echo of your own thoughts, the calm of your own solitude. Yes, it's lonely, but it's also the beginning of real freedom, and perhaps the only way to ever truly know yourself. While they distract themselves to avoid feeling, you see what no one dares to face. Have you ever noticed how terrified people are of silence? Watch them for a moment. They scroll endlessly through their phones, jump from app to app, conversation to conversation, constantly plugged into noise. They fill their calendars with dinners, parties, meaningless errands, anything, to avoid being alone with the soft, uncomfortable voice of their own mind. Because when it gets quiet, their demons start whispering. Jung understood this better than most. He wrote that people would do almost anything to avoid confronting their own unconscious. It's safer to keep the noise going, to drown out the uneasy truths that lurk just beneath the surface. But you were never good at numbing out. While they chase distractions, you sit there, eyes wide open, watching everything they're trying to escape. You see the insecurity in the way someone adjusts their shirt for the 10th time. You notice the strained laugh that doesn't quite reach their eyes. You feel the sadness that leaks out between casual words. It's no wonder they think you're different. You are. Most people build elaborate lives designed to keep themselves from ever having to look too closely. They buy things they don't need, chase relationships that keep them comfortably distracted, pick fights over trivialities so they never have to ask, "What am I really afraid of?" But you've always felt something deeper tugging at your sleeve. A strange hunger, not satisfied by shallow pleasures. A restlessness that refuses to be silenced by new gadgets or gossip or fleeting praise. And because you won't join them in their distractions, they label you distant, cold, antisocial. It's easier to judge you than to wonder what you see that they don't. Have you ever felt that? That subtle wall that goes up when your depth makes others uncomfortable? They laugh a little too loudly, change the subject too quickly, because somewhere inside, they can sense you're not playing the same game. Here's the hard truth. You're not. You're not trying to hide from yourself. You're not terrified of your own thoughts. You're not addicted to the anesthesia of constant company, and that scares them. Because your calm presence, your willingness to sit in silence, your habit of observing instead of performing, it all acts like a mirror. It shows them what they're running from. You see, the world loves the loud, the distracted, the perpetually busy, because it keeps uncomfortable truths buried. But your very existence, your way of being, disrupts that. Your stillness exposes the frenzy. Your depth exposes the superficial. It's like you're standing in a dark room with a lantern, illuminating corners most people would rather leave untouched. Yes, it makes you lonely. Yes, it makes you an outsider. But it also makes you profoundly alive. Because you are actually feeling what others only skim. You're tasting life with all its bitterness and sweetness intact, not diluted by endless noise. Jung called this the path of shadow work, facing the parts of ourselves we'd rather deny. Most people avoid it their entire lives. But you're already deep in it, simply by refusing to numb out. So the next time someone accuses you of overthinking, being too intense, or living in your head, take it as a sign you're exactly where you're meant to be. Because while they distract themselves to avoid feeling, you're standing there in the raw, painful, beautiful truth, seeing what no one else dares to face. And that's not antisocial. That's courage. Being your true self hurts more than pretending. But it's the only way to be free. There's a brutal irony in life. The more honest you are about who you truly are, the more you will bleed. Because the world doesn't reward authenticity. It rewards conformity. It loves the comfortable lie over the uncomfortable truth. Most people have learned to trade little pieces of themselves for acceptance. They smile when they don't mean it, agree when their gut screams no, laugh along just to keep the peace, and every time they do, they chip away at who they really are, until all that's left is a hollow echo of someone else's expectations. But you never could quite master that art. Pretending feels like wearing clothes 2 sizes too small, tight, suffocating, awkward. You've tried, haven't you? Tried to fit in, to laugh at the jokes that fell flat in your chest, to chase the things everyone else seemed so obsessed with. And every time it left you emptier than before. Because there's a part of you, call it your soul, your essence, your inner truth, that refuses to be smothered. Carl Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Terrifying, because once you do, you can't unknow it. You can't go back to pretending. And that's where the pain comes in. Being your true self means standing out when it would be easier to blend in. It means holding unpopular opinions, setting boundaries that make others uncomfortable, choosing solitude over shallow connection. It means risking rejection over and over again. Have you felt that sting? The disappointment in someone's eyes when you reveal a truth they didn't want to hear? The awkward silence after you say what everyone else was too afraid to voice? The loneliness that follows when people drift away because your authenticity threatened the fragile illusions they cling to? It hurts. God, it hurts. But here's what no one tells you. It's a holy kind of pain, because each time you stand in your truth, even trembling, even terrified, you reclaim a piece of yourself that the world tried to take. Most people will never experience this. They stay safe in their masks, wrapped in the cozy illusion of belonging. They don't realize that belonging bought at the cost of your own soul isn't belonging at all. It's bondage. Ask yourself, would you rather be loved for a version of you that doesn't exist or sometimes stand alone but always stand real? Because the freedom that comes from authenticity is unlike anything else. When you finally accept who you are, your strange thoughts, your intense feelings, your deep need for meaning, you become untouchable. Not because people will stop judging you. They won't. But because their judgment no longer owns you. Imagine living a life where you don't constantly scan the room, checking if you're too much or not enough. Where you don't edit your words just to be palatable. Where you trust your own compass more than the crowd's applause. That's what awaits you on the other side of this pain. A life that is truly yours. Raw, imperfect, sometimes desperately lonely, but real. And in that reality, there's a kind of fierce joy, a wild aliveness that those who spend their days pretending will never taste. So yes, being your true self hurts more than faking it. It costs you people, comfort, the illusion of fitting in, but it gives you something infinitely more valuable: yourself. And in a world addicted to self-abandonment, that is the rarest, most rebellious gift you can ever hold. Those who dare to be authentic quietly change the world. Think about this. Who actually changes the world? Who shifts culture, births new art, cracks open deeper truths? It's rarely the ones who blend in perfectly, who say all the right things at the right times, who follow the map society hands them without question. No, it's the ones who stand slightly apart, the quiet observers, the relentless questioners, the souls brave enough to be misunderstood. Look through history, and you'll see it everywhere. Artists who painted madness on canvas while the crowd scoffed. Philosophers who shattered comfortable lies and paid for it with exile or scorn. Inventors, writers, spiritual seekers. People who were once called strange, difficult, antisocial. And yet, decades or centuries later, the world whispers their names with reverence, because they didn't just live by the script, they wrote new ones. Carl Jung himself was deeply aware of this paradox. He wrote about individuation not just as a personal journey, but as humanity's path forward. He believed the only hope for a truly evolved society was for individuals to become whole, to break away from the collective shadow, to stop projecting their wounds onto others, to carry the weight of their own souls honestly. And that always starts alone, always starts quietly, always starts with someone like you, who feels too much, questions too deeply, and refuses to sleepwalk through life. You might think your impact is small, that because you're not shouting from rooftops or commanding armies of followers, you're not changing anything. But that's an illusion. Every time you choose to be real instead of liked, you shift the energy of the room. Every time you sit in silence and refuse to numb out, you model a different kind of strength. Every time you have a conversation that cuts past the surface, you give someone else permission to drop their mask too. Ripples turn into waves. Quiet souls spark quiet revolutions. Maybe your gift isn't to lead crowds, but to truly see people, to listen in a way that makes them feel safe, revealing the truths they've buried. Maybe it's to create art, or ideas, or simply moments of piercing honesty that echo far beyond what you'll ever know. Jung would tell you, the world needs exactly this. Not more polished performances, but raw humanity. Not more people chasing trends, but more people brave enough to look inside and heal what's broken, so they stop bleeding on others. Your authenticity is not just personal salvation, it's collective medicine. So yes, the path of being true to yourself is harder. It's lonelier. It comes with 1,000 tiny deaths. The death of illusions, of shallow relationships, of the comforting lie that you can please everyone if you just try hard enough. But what's born in that space is worth everything you've lost. A life that feels like your own skin. Connections rooted in truth, not performance. A mind that's calm because it no longer needs to constantly check the crowd for instructions. And in that quiet, authentic existence, you are changing the world, simply by refusing to let it change you into something false. So stand firm. Love your solitude. Cherish your questions. Keep daring to be exactly who you are, even if it means walking a lonelier road. Because one day someone else, another quiet, thoughtful, slightly broken soul, will see you living out loud in your own skin. And in that instant, they'll feel less alone. They'll think, maybe I don't have to pretend either. And just like that, you've passed on the spark. Changed a life, changed the world, in the only way it ever truly changes. One honest soul at a time.